Imagine this, you're the Vancouver Canucks and 2 seasons ago you win the Pacific Division. Your coach won the Jack Adams Award and everything's trending up. Then, last season, complete collapse. Miller and Pettersson's toxic feud destroys the locker room. You trade Miller in January, you missed the playoffs, so who do you promote to replace him? A guy whose only head coaching experience was getting fired from a junior team and was so bad they fired him 3 months before hosting the Memorial Cup, with the season falling apart. And now, the Canucks are 18, 33, and 6. Your captain walked out on you, you're on pace for the worst defensive season in franchise history, and you only have 5 wins at home through over 50 games into the season. Oh, and your highest scoring player under contract this season is Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Yeah, the guy you're paying almost $5 million not to play for you. He has 31 points for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that's better than any Canucks player under contract. At some point, this stops being bad luck. When the Canucks were looking for a head coach, Adam Foote's track record was this. 1 head coaching job, got fired mid-season from a team hosting the biggest tournament in junior hockey, and Vancouver's response was, let's promote this guy. So after Rick Tocchet leaves, the Canucks promote Adam Foote from assistant coach to head coach. And the question is, why? He had been Tocchet's assistant for 2.5 years. He ran the defense and penalty kill. The players liked him, and most importantly, Quinn Hughes loved him. But loving your assistant coach and trusting him to run the team are 2 completely different things. And the Canucks had just watched Foote's only head coaching experience end in total failure. They knew he got fired from Kelowna, and they knew they were going to get defensive issues. So why promote him? The Canucks claim they interviewed multiple candidates. Manny Malhotra, head coach of the Abbotsford AHL affiliate, was in the mix. But they chose Foote, the safe internal hire, the guy Quinn Hughes wanted. And here's the real reason. The Canucks were terrified of losing Quinn Hughes. They'd already lost Tocchet, they just traded Miller, the locker room was toxic, and the last thing they needed was more change. So they promoted the assistant coach that Quinn Hughes liked, kept the system familiar, and hoped that everything would stabilize. Except it didn't, because Adam Foote, based on every shred of evidence we have, is not qualified to be an NHL head coach. But before we get to how bad things are on ice, we need to talk about the most brutal stat that perfectly encapsulates this organization's dysfunction. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, the guy they bought out in 2023, the guy they're paying $4.76 million this season not to play for them. OEL has 31 points this season for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Meanwhile, the Canucks' actual team leader, Elias Pettersson, has 30 points. And here's the insane part. Oliver Ekman-Larsson is making $3.5 million from Toronto, which means he's earning more from Vancouver for not playing than he's earning from Toronto for playing. The Canucks bought him out because they said he couldn't produce offense in their system. He immediately goes on to win a Stanley Cup with Florida, signed with Toronto, and now he has more points than anyone currently wearing a Canucks jersey. And the Canucks are paying for it. Think about what that says. You have Besser, you have Pettersson, players who should be elite scorers, and they can't even outscore a 34-year-old defenseman that you're paying not to play. That's not a personnel problem, that's a system problem. And they're paying OEL through 2031. So how's it going under Adam Foote? The Canucks are 18, 33, and 6, last in the NHL with 42 points. And here's the devastating part. The problems are identical to Kelowna. The Canucks have allowed 210 goals this season, which means they're on pace to allow over 300 goals. That would put it in the franchise record books. We're talking about a defensive season contesting the early expansion years, worse than the dark days of the 1980s, and worse than potentially everything this franchise has ever seen. And their penalty kill is hovering around 70%. That is the worst in team history. They're hemorrhaging goals just like Kelowna did. The defensive structure doesn't exist, and teams are getting high danger chances at will. And unfortunately for the Canucks, they're being outscored by more than 1 goal per game on average. There's no structure, they're just hoping Besser or Pettersson can figure it out on their own. But here's the one thing, Besser and Pettersson need structure. They're not McDavid or McKinnon, who can create chances off the rush with speed. They need to be in the right positions, at the right times, and under Foote, they're just floating. No defined entries, no consistent forecheck, and the power play is predictable. Then there's the home record. Over halfway through the regular season, and the Canucks have 6 home wins. That's worse than any previous Canucks team through the same number of games. At Rogers Arena, in front of their own fans paying hundreds of dollars for tickets, and they can't buy a win, and are being forced into a rebuild even through the ownership's refusal. And when things get tough, they're collapsing. They just broke the franchise record with an 11-game losing streak. They ended it with 1 win against Washington and proceeded to lose the next 3 games. That's 1 win in their last 15 games. The Kelowna GM said this group hasn't handled adversity really well. That was 5 years ago, and it applies word for word today. Same coach, same inability to respond when things get tough, and same collapse when the pressure's on. And earlier this season, the Canucks trade Quinn Hughes, the franchise captain, the Norris Trophy winner, the guy they were terrified of losing, because Quinn Hughes looked at this disaster and said, "No way am I staying." Quick shout out to today's sponsor, the Victory Hockey League. Like Quinn Hughes, the VHL is where you can actually take control of your career. Here's how it works. You create your own player, you start in the minors, you grind your way up through the ranks and decide everything about your player and play style. Earn development points by being active, writing articles about your team, hosting podcasts, or doing press conferences. It's the ultimate community for hockey fans. Links are down below. Join the Discord, be a part of a team, and let the community help you start your career today. Now back to the reality of the Vancouver Canucks. The organization promoted Foote partly to keep Hughes happy, and they had to trade Hughes anyway because he refused to re-sign. Here's the question that should haunt every Canucks fan. What is Adam Foote's system? What's the identity? Because from the outside, it looks like there is none. When Foote was hired, he said this: "We want a team that can compete every night. We're gonna be hard to play against." Hard to play against? The Canucks are on pace for the 2nd worst defensive season in the 56-year history of this franchise. They just broke the franchise record for the longest losing streak. They have the worst home start in franchise history. Teams are feasting on them. This isn't a hard to play against team. They're a gift. And what makes this inexcusable is Adam Foote's entire identity as a player was defense, gap control, physicality, protecting the net front, shutting down top lines. This was his game for 19 years in the NHL. 2 Stanley Cups. And as a coach, he just can't teach it. Or he's teaching it and the players can't execute it. Either way, it's not working. Compare this to Kelowna, it's the same problems. The Rockets couldn't defend. They couldn't handle adversity. And the GM said, "I think we're probably in a position where a different voice is going to be important right now." Sound familiar? Because the Canucks are in the exact same spot. Different level, same result. Same coach, same failures. So let's zoom out, because Adam Foote is not the only problem here. He's a symptom of a much bigger organizational dysfunction. The Canucks lost Rick Tocchet, a Jack Adams winning coach, partly because their owner, Francesco Aquilini, who owns a real estate development company, refuses to build the team a practice facility. They practice at a college rink. Once Calgary finishes building their facility, the Canucks will be the only team in the entire NHL without one. So you lose your coach over infrastructure, then you promote an inexperienced replacement whose only head coaching job ended in a disaster, and then your franchise captain refuses to resign and demands a trade. Then the team collapses in every measurable way. That's not bad luck, that's systematic failure. And there's a blame metric. You can blame Foote. He's overwhelmed, he has no answers, this is the worst Canucks season in franchise history, and after half a season, they have no identity, no adjustments, and no progress. You can blame management because they promoted a guy with a failed coaching resume because it was the safe and internal thing to do. They prioritized short-term wins over long-term gains and prioritized Quinn Hughes' comfort over actually hiring the best coach. And now Quinn Hughes is gone anyway. You can blame ownership because Francesco Aquilini won't invest in basic infrastructure. The cheapness and dysfunction starts at the top. You can blame the roster because the players just aren't good enough, because maybe they can't execute but the talent really isn't there. Or the reality when you hire a coach with the only experience was failure and then he replicates the same failures at the NHL level, maybe it's also a coaching problem. So here's the brutal, inescapable truth. Adam Foote was fired from the Kelowna Rockets because the team couldn't defend, couldn't handle adversity, and had no offensive structure. The Rockets were hosting the Memorial Cup, the biggest stage in junior hockey, and they were so bad that they fired him 3 months before the tournament. Years later, and the Vancouver Canucks have promoted Adam Foote to NHL head coach. And every single problem from Kelowna followed him to Vancouver. The leaky defense, the inability to score, the home ice disasters, and the complete collapse under pressure. It's all there. The exact same failures, just at a higher level. The Canucks didn't hire Adam Foote despite his track record. They hired him because of it. Because he was safe, because he was comfortable, and because Quinn Hughes liked him. And now, Quinn Hughes is gone, the season is lost, fans are furious, and the franchise is staring down years of Oliver Ekman-Larsson buyout payments while he's producing for someone else. This isn't bad luck, this isn't a roster problem, and this isn't about one trade or one injury. This is what happens when you ignore obvious red flags, when you prioritize comfort over competence, and when you make decisions out of fear instead of conviction. Adam Foote showed you exactly who he was in Kelowna, and the Vancouver Canucks just chose to ignore it. And now they're paying the price. Funny enough, 99.9% of my audience is unsubscribed, and so I'd love it if you subscribe since these videos do take a long time. I'd love to see you in the next, and let me know what you'd like to see for future videos.